What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated, unified, WBC, IBF, welterweight, world champion, superstar boxer, ERROL "The Truth" Spence Jr., who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. ERROL Spence Jr. has 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 21 big wins by way of knockout. He is 31 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. He will be taking on WBA, World Boxing Association, Cuban star welterweight world champion, Yordenis Ugas, who is 27 wins, 4 losses, 12 wins by way of knockout, no draws, 35 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 69-inch arm reach. With that said, that's scheduled to take place April 16th, Arlington, Texas, AT&T Dallas Cowboys Stadium. There was another fight that took place last night with super featherweight, 130-pound title contender, superstar boxer, Christopher Primetime Little B-Hop Colbert. He was in action in a WBA title eliminator against Hector Garcia out of the Dominican Republic. Hector Garcia came in on a short notice, 2.5-week notice. He was a late replacement for Gutierrez, who is the WBA super featherweight 130-pound champion, who Christopher Colbert was initially scheduled and slated to face off against. And Christopher Colbert is very brash, very outspoken. And Christopher Colbert, he came up short, to say the least. He got dominated in this fight. He was dropped in the fight. And this is a guy in Hector Garcia who took the fight on a 2.5-week notice, okay? Now, Christopher Colbert, if you don't know, he had some very interesting things to say about ERROL Spence. He states that he's always picked against ERROL Spence. In every fight that ERROL Spence is in, he just never makes money because obviously ERROL Spence is undefeated, okay? So Chris Colbert, he stated that I always pick against ERROL Spence and I just never win. He said I have an issue with ERROL Spence being very flat-footed, and he said that ERROL Spence is a dog, but he's flat-footed, and I've always picked against him. Most recently, ERROL Spence was supposed to face off against legendary 8-division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny "Pac-Man" Pacquiao, August 21st of last year. But ERROL Spence, he suffered a broken detached retina and had to be pulled from the fight, okay? And so in an interview Chris Colbert did, asked about the fight between ERROL Spence and Manny Pacquiao and the situation that ERROL Spence suffered the injury. He said, you know, he wasn't very sympathetic towards ERROL Spence. He stated that, you know, it ain't Manny Pacquiao's fault. Yordenis Ugas deserved the opportunity. Yordenis Ugas, he filled in for ERROL Spence Jr. Oddly enough, ERROL Spence Jr. was expected to go into a unification bout with Manny Pacquiao, who was initially the WBA world champion, but due to inactivity after he defeated former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith "One-Time" Thurman July of 2019, Manny Pacquiao was out the ring for 2 years. Obviously was dealing with a global pandemic, and Manny Pacquiao being a Senate over in this country in the Philippines, he had to deal with that. In the WBA, Yordenis Ugas was the regular champion. They placed Manny Pacquiao as the super champion, and then they took that title from Manny Pacquiao, gave it to Yordenis Ugas, elevated Yordenis Ugas, and the fight wasn't a unification bout, okay? And so Yordenis Ugas ended up filling in for ERROL Spence anyway, and getting the fight and dominating Manny Pacquiao in dominating fashion. So with that said, Chris Colbert, he attested to that, and he stated that, you know, he didn't feel sorry for ERROL Spence, okay? And so, you know, like he said, he always picked against ERROL Spence. Obviously, he's close friends with 2-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer Danny Swift Garcia, and he picked Danny Garcia, but he stated that he knew that if Danny Garcia wasn't more aggressive in the fight and was trying to sit back and counterpunch, he was going to lose to the likes of ERROL Spence, that he needed to be more aggressive, but he still picked against ERROL Spence Jr. And then when it came to Manny Pacquiao and ERROL Spence, he said that ERROL Spence is flat-footed. Manny Pacquiao going to be all over him, going to overwhelm him, and he definitely going to win the fight. So obviously, ERROL Spence took note of that. And when Christopher Colbert lost, ERROL Spence had a very interesting take. He said that, you know, all of that cute stuff is cute when you winning, when you're a front runner. He stated, but when you're losing and it's time to be a dog, that Q stuff goes out the window, and now it's time for you to bite down. And Chris Colbert simply didn't do so. Okay. And so Errol Spence, he obviously made it be known that, Chris Colbert fought a guy that took a fight on a 2.5-week notice, got dropped. He's very outspoken. Like he had a lot to say about 2-division undefeated world champion superstar, WBO reigning super featherweight world champion, and Shakur Stevenson, who's going into a massive unification bout April 30th. Okay, so Errol Spence is fighting April 16th, and then April 30th we got Shakur Stevenson taking on undefeated 2-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer, who's the WBC reigning super featherweight, and Oscar Valdez in a unification bout. So after that fight, Chris Colbert was stating that he wanted to fight Shakur Stevenson, and that he would go to any measures, even if it meant giving up his life in the ring, to beat Shakur Stevenson. Okay, so Shakur Stevenson, he stated, Chris Colbert is all bite, all bark, no bite. I told y'all. Okay, Shakur Stevenson actually had a lot of things to attest towards Chris Colbert, but Errol Spence, he stated that Chris Colbert just didn't show up. The dog in him didn't show up in the championship rounds. Errol Spence, he tweeted out, he said, now it's time for you to bite down. Now it's time for you to, to show the grit, to show the heart of a guy that wants to be a champion, to back up everything you've been saying all of this time. So he didn't do it. In the championship rounds, he was on his bicycle. He was utilizing the ring, utilizing movement to avoid any contact with Hector Garcia, as if he was winning the fight. He didn't want to engage with Hector Garcia as if he was winning the fight. And so Errol Spence said, it's ironic that he took it on short notice. 2.5-week notice Hector Garcia took the fight, and he clearly dominated the fight. Okay, Chris Colbert didn't seem to have any answer, any adjustments for the fight. Initially in the first round, I thought that, he made a good adjustment. Hector Garcia being a southpaw, and Hector Garcia keeping his right hand, his lead hand, by his waist, and his power hand, in the mid-range area. And Chris Colbert made an adjustment. He's normally an orthodox fighter. He switched to southpaw, and I thought that was a good move because he has power in both hands. So he had the athletic and the speed ability and the advantage over Hector Garcia. So I thought that he would be able to capitalize on it. And then he switched back. And he never switched back to southpaw. Okay, he switched back to orthodox. I thought he was making an adjustment because it was a strategy, and he seemed to have zero strategy. He was bouncing around the ring. He was giving up, he was giving up ground, backing himself into a corner, backing himself up on the ropes. Okay, not standing his ground. At times he was, and he clearly was the better athlete. He clearly was the better boxer. Okay, he clearly had the speed and hand and foot advantage over Hector Garcia. But what he didn't have is the grit. He didn't show heart that he so elegantly talks about when he's discussing and describing other fighters, his peers. So when he's describing his other peers, he's always talking about showing heart, showing grit. Guys complaining and making up excuses. When he talked about Deontay Wilder, he's not one to hold back on his words. And it's ironic because his words of how he speaks, it didn't show up last night in his fight. Okay, what he speaks about and how he speaks and the way he talks, as if he's gonna, he's willing to give it all up in the ring to be victorious. And in the 11th and 12th round, when the opportunity presented itself, for him to give it all up and to make a statement, well, he did the polar opposite. He started utilizing the ring. He started moving. He didn't want to engage. It seems like he was hurt by something that Hector Garcia landed. And he simply, truly just didn't want to sit down on his punches. Okay, he didn't want to engage with Hector Garcia, which is ironic because Hector Garcia didn't display a ton of punching power. Even when he dropped Chris Colbert with a straight left hand, Chris Colbert had left his feet. He had left his feet, and he was out of position when he got clipped with the straight left hand and dropped. Okay, so it wasn't like, and it was a clean left hand, but you can see he didn't get full extension on it. He didn't have a lot of power on it, but he simply, caught Chris Colbert. His timing beats speed. So his timing, he caught Chris Colbert at the perfect time, and he dropped him. Okay, but he didn't seem to be having, you know, bricks in his hands. He didn't seem to be, you know, the biggest puncher in the world. He was just using his timing, and he was giving Chris Colbert, ironically, plenty of opportunities in the fight where he looked like he was fatigued, looked like he, you know, was ready to pack it in, and Chris Colbert just wasn't willing to help him. Okay. So Errol Spence, he said, he had this to say. He said, all that cute stuff look nice when it's going your way, but when it's not going your way, it's time to bite down and, you know, be a champion, show the heart of a champion, show the will of a great fighter, and you didn't do it. Okay. Then Errol Spence, he had this to say. He said, dude came ready off a 2.5 week notice. Respect to him. Absolutely. You know what I mean? He said, late replacement is working, Colbert. Wow. So that's what Errol Spence had to say. So he responded to Chris Colbert. So that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.